Hello and welcome to the Uprising Show. And today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Jobby John. And Dr. John, I would like you to introduce yourself briefly in your own words.
Sure. Hi, Vivek. Thank you for having me. My name is Jobby John. I'm the founder and CEO of Nimbus Healthcare. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I've owned a few pharmacies based in Texas over the last 10 years. I'm very ingrained in the pharmacy world, and that's really my background. So much so that I'm the incoming president elect for the Texas Pharmacy Association, which is our trade organization. So, pharmacy is my passion. That's what I do. And I'm very passionate about personalized medicine and getting it more accessible to the Americans all over the country. So, yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Well, welcome again. And also, congratulations for being the president at the
Oh,
Texas
thanks.
Pharmacy Association.
Not quite president yet. I take office in July. So, then president elect right now.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Ready to go. All right, cool. So, I heard in one of your interviews, I think, that your grandfather worked as a pharmacist in India. So, I guess I'm, first of all, very curious how people end up where they are. Did he inspire you to pursue your career path?
Yeah. So he didn't directly like tell me to go into pharmacy or pharmacy should be what I do, but he was definitely an influential force in why I picked pharmacy as a profession. So my grandfather on my dad's side, he was a pharmacist. He was in the British Army as a pharmacist. So India was under British colonial control for a long time. So he was in the British Army, and once he came back home, I'm from Kerala originally. He started a pharmacy in his rural area as an independent shop. And I spent some time there with him. And I thought it was the coolest thing because it's an independent shop and he kind of gave care the way he wanted to give care. Like it's very loose, right? Like the healthcare
Mhm.
system in India is very different. You kind of walk up to a pharmacy and ask for the drug and you kind of get what you want, right? So and there were certain instances where like he would help out people that couldn't afford their meds and just seeing the gratitude that they had towards him, like it's life-saving medications, they couldn't afford it, he just gave it to them. I don't know, that just really deeply like just sunk into me, I guess, at that point. It's like just the power and the control and the ability to influence people's lives was so cool. So yeah, I decided to pursue a profession of pharmacy, and I would say he had a big part in it.
Interesting. And was your parent any of your parent was also in the
Oh
pharmacy
no,
world?
none of them
No.
went into anything healthcare related. No, my parents were just blue collar workers. They didn't get into any kind of healthcare related fields.
Yeah. Yeah. To this day, by the way, for this is for the listener, to this day, my family is still in India and the pharmacists still have the same kind of
I
how
think I
they
lost you
function.
there.
You can go ask for any prescription, and to that level that sometimes my uncle will go to the pharmacist and ask them, hey, I'm not feeling well, can I have something? And the pharmacist will provide them with the medicine, and it's so much trust. It's almost like
Oh,
to that level that it's almost like close to a doctor how they're treated, which I don't see it here in this world that much. You have to really do that.
very different systems, right? It's completely different. The healthcare systems in all the countries are very different. And America, unfortunately, spends the most amount of money in our healthcare system and has the worst outcomes. Like
Yeah,
we spend billions of dollars on our healthcare system and we have the worst outcomes. And there's countries who spend a fraction of that and have way better patient outcomes than we do. So something needs to change. I like to call it the sick care system because it's not really a healthcare system. We wait till somebody gets sick to take care of them. So I'm a big believer in proactive care and preventative medicine. So like I think that's the direction we need to go into, and people are starting to see that.
wonderful. And your work, and you have been deeply into personalized medicine and you're pioneering this work. So, and this is just for very basic for everyone who's listening, could you explain what personalized medicine means and why it is crucial in today's landscape?
Sure. Yeah, personalized medicine is basically a healthcare approach that tailors medical treatments to the individual characteristics of the patient. So we look at genetics, lifestyle, lab work, the environment, and tailor prescription plan specific for that patient based on that individual. So it's like away from a one size fits all approach, which is what how medicine's practiced today. Like if you have a cholesterol issue and you go see a doctor, like they have a rubric or a guideline they have to follow on. This is how we start meds for this like a patient, and that's any patient across the board. There's few instances where that might vary based on ethnicity or whatnot, but like it's pretty standardized. They don't look at the genetics. They don't look to see if this person metabolizes this drug A that we were going to give them faster or slower or any of that. So that drug may not be the right fit for that person at that time. So personalized medicine would take that into account. So if you have an issue and we look at your genetics and see that you metabolize drug A at this rate, and drug B might be a better fit for you because drug A just doesn't do it for you, we would go with drug B, right? So it's just really
Right.
tailoring a treatment plan, a protocol, a prescription plan around an individual for who they are, opposed to just demographics like across the board. That's
Right.
really what personalized medicine is getting down to the nitty gritty.
So the question is, it's not more. It is more of a preventative and uh, proactive approach versus afterwards when you get sick and you're trying to figure it out. When does it start really?
Yeah, so it could be done in both sectors, right? It could be done both ways. So, ideally, on the preventative side, if you kind of know what you're predisposed to having, like if your genetics is already on file and somebody's looked at it and they see that you have markers that show that you're at a high risk for hyperlipidemia, which is high cholesterol, or cardiac issues, then we can treat you ahead of time, give you a diet plan, give you like an exercise plan. Hey, you're at a really high risk, so you got to follow these metrics. You can go on these preventative meds to make sure you don't get to this state where it's really bad, right? So you could do that, which is would be the ideal thing to do. We're very far away from that, but you could also do it on the curative side too. Like the example I gave you earlier with the drug selection process, right? Like there's a guideline and formulary that people follow, but everybody's starting at the same spot, right? Like nobody's skipping over to another drug because we like healthcare providers just don't have enough data to make those decisions. So if we had your genetics or like other pertinent factors on hand, we could see, okay, you metabolize drug B better than drug A, so let's go with drug B, right? So it could be
Right.
done on both sides. The preventative side, obviously, there's a lot more research and outcome stuff we need to measure and get implemented first. But on the curative side too, you could do it.
Okay. And now about about your company, Nimbus Healthcare. So what led to the creation of the company? What actually happened in your life that led you to start this company? And then also give us a little bit specifics about what problem does Nimbus solve and how's this approach different from existing solutions?
Sure. So the creation of Nimbus really stemmed from the desire to address gaps in personalized medicine and patient care. We noticed that many patients were not receiving treatments tailored to their unique needs and which led to suboptimal outcomes, right? So Nimbus Healthcare really aims to solve those issues, and we're leveraging technology to really get those personalized approaches and customized treatment plans out to patients. I can point that question down to two areas really. One was the cost barrier that we saw. So typically, to get any sort of personalized prescription plan, you have to go see a doctor that's well versed in their area to write for the prescription, right? So that in itself poses a problem. There's not a lot of doctors to start off with in the United States, right? There's a big shortage of medical providers, primary care providers. So going to somebody who understands hormone optimization or genetics based hair restoration or weight loss to the level that we're doing it is not always easy. And typically it comes with a high price tag. On an average, it's like $1,200 a consult. So like not a lot of Americans can afford to do that. It's usually like your A-list Hollywood celebrities, your professional athletes that have access and can afford that kind of care where everything's being tailored to their genetics, their biochemistry and whatnot, right? So what I saw personally, being an independent pharmacy owner, a compounding pharmacist, was that I took care of these people. I took care of the A-list celebrities, and we were getting prescriptions from doctors like very high profile doctors, right, that you see all over TV, that I'm pretty sure these people were paying thousands of dollars to go see. But at the end of the day, what they got that cured them and made them better was the personalized treatment plan that we dispensed, which was only a fraction of that cost. It was a couple $100 or under $100 a month, right? So I started thinking, like, how can I get this level of care out to people in America without them having to go see a specialist, an integrated medicine guru, and spend $10,000 for lab workup and a consult? How can we leverage technology to do this? And that's what we've done at Nimbus.
Interesting. And is there, or I don't even know if there are any competitors to Nimbus? Are there companies who are doing this?
there's there's nobody doing what we do the way we're doing it. There are people who do hormone optimization online. Um, they don't really take into account blood work. They just go answer some questions and like, yeah, here are your hormones, right? Like we have our own unique testing kits, right? Like this is one of our testing kits for females that measures progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, cortisol, TSH, and so on. So like we have our own proprietary test kits. We have our own way of tracking the data and giving our providers solid treatment protocols to follow based on the symptomology and the labs. And we use AI on the back end for a lot of this. I hate using the word AI now, but because we were using machine learning before it became the buzzword, right? And that's how we tailor a lot of our patient protocols. So I don't know if anybody's really doing that to that extent or that granular data, but there are people who offer these services online.
Very interesting. So, uh, just to like rephrase it, I think I always find this like, in healthcare, we always talk about two things, like access and affordability, right? That's kind of the core problem.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that Nimbus is trying to bring these personalized medicine, what others or what celebrities were doing it, and now it's making affordable for everyone who can take opportunity across the country. That's
1,000%. That's exactly what it is. That's our goal. That's my personal goal. Is that I want more people to have access to this kind of medicine. Right? It's not that the medicine itself is so much more expensive, right?
right.
Like, it's just that getting it to what works for Vivek or what works for Joby. That's the hard part. But with the way technology has grown, we can do that now, right? So we can
Mhm.
we can use technology to really diagnose patients and create treatment plans for them. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we've accomplished to a certain degree, and which has helped our growth.
Wonderful. So, as a company, how big are you as a company? What's your operations like? Is it
Uh, we're
just in
we're about
Texas or
12
everywhere across the
people,
country? How many people?
stateside, and we have about a 10-person development team overseas. So we're about 20 to
Wonderful.
25 people.
Got it. Okay. And about your customer base, like how have you been getting your customers today? And could you also maybe elaborate in terms of growing the business, things that have worked and things that have not worked for you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we currently acquire customers through multiple channels, right? Like digital marketing is obviously our biggest channel, being a direct to consumer business. Then we have partnerships with other strategic partners like pharmacies that sell our test kits, right? So you can walk into an independent that carries our test kits, buy the test kit,
Mhm.
get your labs tested, and have your pharmacist looped into the care protocol that the person you see every day or every month whenever you go to pick up prescriptions. So we have strategic partnerships like that. We also have a B2B model we're building out with gyms and spas and so on, where they can sell our test kits and their patients can get access to this level of care via our platform. So those are our main areas of focus right now, and those are the areas we've seen growth in. The couple areas we tried that haven't worked were like the traditional media, like radio. Where we tried radio for a while, it didn't really work. And it makes sense, right? Like we're a tech heavy platform, so the listening base is not really somebody who would use our product. So it didn't really work. Yeah, that's pretty much the only avenue that hasn't worked well for us. But all our digital and outreach efforts have been pretty well perceived and have converted.
And what about traditional? trade shows and stuff? Have you
Yeah,
been
yeah,
in
yeah.
it?
We've done trade shows. We actually launched our women's line at South by Southwest here in Austin, which was well perceived. But
Mhm.
trade shows come with a huge cost, right? Like you have to pay for the setup, the sweat equity that goes into going there, getting set up. It's a good way to get the brand out there, but from a pure ROI or customer conversion aspect, it's not that quite that good for us.
Right.
Because the
And
whole point of our platform is that you can access and gain healthcare on a granular level from the comfort of your home. So you don't need to be out walking a trade show booth to like find our test kits
right.
for you. You could order it
Yeah.
online and get the
Yeah.
level of care you need.
Yeah. I guess more of from partnership perspective, probably just there are different partners there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That there are partners, and based on which strategic ones you go to, you can form some alliances. We've primarily been focusing on the direct to consumer side as we built out our base. That's where we see most of the growth. So the B2B side, we're planning on really building out after our Series A.
And when you obviously the business partnership side, so how does that work? Is it like they will just sell the kits to their patients or people who will be there, and for them the incentive or the value is like they are able to see their genetics charts and what works, kind of like a profile for them, or how does
Yeah.
it that work?
Yeah, exactly. So our partners will have access to our technology, basically that allows them to keep track of the patient, get the information they need, whether it's genetics or blood biomarkers, and then we have physicians licensed in all 50 states that can review these
Hmm.
charts and give the patients treatment protocols. So then they're a part of the care paradigm, right? Like whether they're a
Right.
nutritionist or whatever consulting service they're doing, but they also get are able to treat these patients with prescriptions, which is usually limited through just a provider's office. But we have our providers who are able to write these scripts, right? So now you can provide your services and get pharmaceutical care on a personalized level without having to be a licensed professional.
Got it. And is it so in the beginning, more or less, the pull is for I guess the way it works is you kind of like it's a land of expand kind of business model. You want to give the kid, you want to give them the insights on what works and what works for them, and from there on there is an opportunity to be like, hey, even if either you can write the scripts through your providers, or I would believe that maybe even if they're going to get scripts, your providers can review it and provide. Do you do that second part too, or is it just
Exactly.
the
Yeah, yeah.
first
We
part?
have providers internally who can see the patients, or you can choose if you're a doctor's office, you can see the data and write for your own prescription. And we actually show on our portal what our suggested treatment protocol is based off
Hmm.
of historical use, what our AI tells us should work, and we can track that. And every month we follow up with the patient for a symptomology update to see how they're doing, and it's not a human being doing it, right? These are all auto
Yeah.
generated ways of us keeping track of patients. We're getting ready to launch wearables where we're tracking patients on how they're performing on the weight loss side. We launched GLP-1 drugs compounded on our site. So now, I mean, everybody, I mean, Ozempic, Manjaro, like very hot topics right now, right? So semaglutide and tirzepatide, we can actually compound and provide to patients because they're on the FDA short supply list. So a lot of people are getting it from wherever, but nobody's really got a good plan on how to keep these patients like safe and healthy, right? So we're creating protocols using technology. Like we can measure your blood pressure levels, like see how you're sleeping, how much calories you're burning, and all this data can be used to help patients stay on track because you need to have a high protein intake. You need to be working out and doing strength training while you're on a GLP-1 to actually get good outcomes and kind of slowly wean off the drug. Otherwise, you'll probably be on the drug for a very long time, which is very cost prohibitive and like just difficult in general, right? So, what we're looking at ways of leveraging technology to do that.
That's interesting because most the incentive for the pharma world is to keep them on the drug,
Yeah.
and it's refreshing to hear from somebody in the pharmacy world to say that, we're trying to make it so that way that they don't go that path of having that medicine for life, and just trying to do it in a way which actually will make, just like the right medication adherence, what's needed, optimal. And
One thousand
uh,
percent. So I have an old saying. My all my employees know this. So like my stores here, we have about 30 to 40 employees within our pharmacy system, and I tell them like, if you take care of the patient will take care of you. And what I mean is
right,
that if you give good care and they get good outcomes, they will come back and take care of the business in general. Like it could be a referral, it could be them continuing their business with the business itself. So like I'm a big believer in that, and that's where this all kind of stems from. And there's enough people out there to treat, man. You don't need to keep one person on the same drug forever to like have a profitable business, right? You cure them, you make them feel better, and word travels fast.
got it. And what about uh, the influencer marketing? I mean, there's a whole thing in going in, especially in D2C world, about longevity and hormone and weight loss, and companies are
And you're
leveraging
gonna get me
that
on a
too.
soapbox here about this. So yes, there's so many influencers in the healthcare provider realm providing health data and just gibberish out there who have never actually treated a patient, right? Who've ever actually like been in the healthcare sector, and that's a big pet peeve of mine. I actually just wrote an article on this regarding the arrest of the CEO of Dunn on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Hmm.
They just got
Yeah.
indicted for $100 million Adderall scheme, right? Like they had
Yeah.
they disrupted a market that they saw and took an opportunity. And if you don't know about the Dunn model, like people were able to get Adderall and all these controlled
Pills. Yeah.
like without even ever having proper diagnoses through like telehealth providers, which is absolutely just terrible medicine, right? Like you're creating addiction issues, you're creating a huge problem. And that's a non-healthcare provider who started the company and saw it, and just people jumped on board with them. And I have a big issue with that, right? So there's a lot of influencers out there who just put out just not good information. There's a guy called Dr. Ids. I don't know if you know. He's on Instagram. He's an influencer in itself, and his whole thing is about debunking other like influencers' data. Right? He uses
Mm.
actual data to debunk what they're saying. So people are very vulnerable in certain states, and especially what they see on social media. And if they kind of like you, they'll buy into this stuff that you're saying. But it's not responsible to be putting out bad information without
Right.
solid proof behind it, right? So I have a problem with that. I don't like it. Like so, like I haven't had the time to actually become an influencer, put out hard data itself. I wish I did, so I could like debunk stuff like Dr. Ids does. But I'm glad that there's people out there doing it. What we have used on the digital marketing side are ambassadors. Like for a
Mm.
weight loss program, we provide the meds to patients and we monitor them, and we with their permission share their stories. And those are just real life stories that are tangible that people can follow. So those kind of influencers, I'm okay with those. That's actual like treatment, like seeing how they're doing. But people who are giving just putting out rubbish, man, it's just not cool.
Yeah. It's a lot of noise, right? So it's a lot of noise, and there's everybody saying just about anything. And the story from Dunn that this morning only I read from one of the newsletters, and it was like how it could be avoided. And the number one thing was like more clinical voices in the process, and it was missing. And that's your point of like, especially people who are non-clinical, they're only looking at cash flow at that point, and they just thought this was a loophole. Let's just make as much cash out of that, right?
Yeah.
And that's I guess there is a fine balance, right? So I also saw this chart not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago or so, that in last 20 years in the US, the administrator roles and expenditure is 20x grown, versus the provider is only 4x.
Oh,
So now the reason is we are also getting regulated, and that's why you need more people to regulate it, and that's why there are more administrators from everywhere. But I guess there is still that fine balance. Where do you stand with that? How do you feel about that, like balance between regulations, but also having the freedom of making the healthcare accessible and affordable.
Man, you're speaking my language now. So I mentioned earlier that I'm the incoming president elect for the Texas Pharmacy Association. So one of the biggest problems in the pharmacy dispensing industry, retail pharmacy, community pharmacy, whatever it be, is PBMs. You're familiar with pharmacy
Yep.
benefit managers,
Hmm.
PBMs? That's the 20x administrative cost that you're talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
there are pharmacies going out of business every day in this country because of how terrible the system is and how it's been built. Where like I'm buying drug A for X, like say $100, right? And by the time it gets dispensed to you, my overhead all included. When somebody is just reimbursing me $80 for it, how does that make any sense? Right? That's what's happening today. Like, and as far as the patient's concerned, they got the med, and pharmacists, unfortunately, are the most soft-hearted people, right? Like they went into the business to take care of people, right? They're not going to say, "Oh, I can't give you your med because I'm losing money on the back end." They'll take care of the patient, but it gets to the point where it's not a viable business model, and that's what we're seeing now. And it's because of these administrative burdens put on by the healthcare system or sick care system, if you want to call it, where it's not a thriving business. Like primary care is going through the same thing. Like primary care providers are not being reimbursed to even cover their overhead. So what's happening is there's this conglomeration coming in and buying up all these small practices and putting them together and having this like model where, okay, hey physician, you got to see this patient in 15 minutes and that's all you got, because that's how we make the model work, right? Where they can't give the care the way they want to provide care and they have to follow somebody's rubric. And this is all because the actual provider is not making enough money and somebody up top is making all the money, right? Like the healthcare system, I mentioned this earlier, we spend the most money on healthcare in the world and have the worst outcomes, right? Like not even closely proportional. So who's making all this money? Right? Like, where is all this money being spent? And like, when I go lecture at UT, so I'm a big hardcore Longhorn. I graduated from UT, and they have me over there to do talks from time to time. I always ask the students, if you look like these PBMs, like your Express Scripts, your Aetna, like your CVS Healthcare Mark, they're all publicly traded companies, right? And their sole job, their sole existence is to manage pharmacy benefits for insurance companies, right? That's their entire like reason for existing. So if you're trying to save money for your insurance provider, how does your bottom line keep getting bigger and bigger every year? Because you publish this data, you're a publicly traded company, right? How do you keep getting richer and richer while everything around you is breaking apart? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like
Yeah.
so, it's an absolute shit show, to be honest with you. And luckily, more and more people are catching on to this. About the need for transparency in this market. Mark Cuban's one of them, Dallas guy,
Yeah.
as you know. Fortunately, the
Hmm.
Mavs lost last night, but really good dude, and he's got his own business now, Cost Plus Drug, where he's trying to disrupt the market with just cash pay model, right? So long story short, what I think is going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years is people are getting smarter. They're going to realize, oh, shoot, we're just feeding all these pigs out there, these middlemen, these leeches that are just like sucking us dry. We're just going to go direct to the provider, right? We're
Hmm.
just going to go straight to the doctor. I'm going to pay him X amount of dollars and he's going to take care of me. And it's going to make more sense for the doctor to do that too. And that's why we see this resurgence in direct primary care happening now, because doctors are like, well, dude, I just want to take care of my patients. I want to take care of 300 to 400 patients. If they pay me $100 a month, I'm good, right? That's the
Yeah.
model. That's what we're going to
Yeah.
see grow. Same thing's going to happen with pharmacy too once we figure out how to get these brand name drugs a little bit under control.
So
But that's
direct
probably a
primary.
longer-winded question, like answer than you wanted. But
Yeah, it's like it's like the direct primary care model maybe coming into pharmacy world, and the primary care physicians also got, that's the only way they could figure it out to cut the insurances. Like, all right, we go into
yeah,
subscription, treat directly patient, take money from them. That's how it's going to work. And
yeah,
it's a pity that it's so much middleman in healthcare world that the cost is, the worst thing is neither the caregiver is making money. Providers and caregivers, they don't make money in healthcare, and that causes shortage because it's not attractive enough. And
Exactly.
then once that's the case, you're in this unending cycle of how do you ever will have that, like, full access or full affordability, and that's the big problem. Yeah, sad, but I
Yeah,
hope.
but that's exactly what's
Uh,
happening. Like now, pharmacy. I mean, pharmacy is my profession, so I just know enough about it. Is that we have lowest enrollment rates of all time. Like I was at a
yeah.
meeting, NASPA meeting in Colorado, where all the association heads get together from all the different states, and we had the president of AACP, which is the Academy of Colleges of Pharmacy,
Mhm.
and he was saying that enrollment across the board's down because people don't see pharmacy as a thriving business, nor is it cool enough anymore, right? Like
Right.
these businesses are going out of business every day. Pharmacists are like walking out of their jobs because they're overworked, right? Because the
Right.
bottom line is so squeezed, you have to do so much more, like just cranking out pills that they just don't see it as a good profession anymore. They're just walking out. You probably saw it, like CVS pharmacists were walking out in Kansas, like so that's
Yeah.
a big issue now. And it's like you hit the nail on the head. It's like this vicious cycle. Like, okay, so we don't have enough people in this profession now, whether it's a pharmacist or a healthcare provider or a doctor or a nurse. And like, what happens 5 years from now when there's not enough people to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess about your company. So, what are you currently fundraising, and what's your current traction looks like?
Yeah, we're about to start fundraising again. We had some milestones we wanted to hit. We did a small seed round last year, which has got it to this point. We've been luckily, okay, we're growing 30% month over month since last August, which has got us to where we want to go. And now to build out some of the other components like the B2B side, et cetera, we're looking to raise some capital in our Series A. So we'll probably start that effort in July. And we already
Got
have
it.
people who are interested in coming on board. We just got to find the right partner for us, which,
Yeah.
as you know, it's like a marriage. Like you got to find the right partner who you get
Yeah.
along with. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it doesn't usually work out.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, it's like you're at like that sweet spot. There's an overlap between direct to consumer DTC model, and then there is tech involved. So there is both side. It's, I guess, how are you shortlisting kind of your venture capital or PE partner in this case? Is it like, you certainly don't want who's just focused on DTC model, and you also don't want just who's like tech, because it's kind of like in between. So is there anything special that you look for, the or how are you educating the venture capital on your business?
Yeah, yeah. So, like, one of the key things I look for on the venture side is do you have portfolio companies that are in this space or a similar space that we could have strategic alliances with, right? So, our one thing we're really, really good at is prescription products, personalized medicine, compounded prescriptions, personalized, right? From every level you could possibly imagine, from the quality to the formulations and whatnot, right? So, who could benefit from us being in the mix, and how can you help us grow and get into other businesses? Is usually what we look for when we're looking at VCs or other strategic partners.
Got it.
Because, like
uh,
as you saw, people the done HD model, right? Like you got to know what
yeah.
you're doing, otherwise there's issues there.
Yeah. I feel like in the last few years there have been several cases where VCs just poured money and they had no idea like how this thing works, and then there is some oversight and they didn't even ask why they were taking or getting money. Right? I think you need to question both giving and getting money. Both times you should question like why
Yeah,
I'm getting this money, and I think most people don't question like VCs also like, oh, we're making money, that's fine, or this company's making money. So
exactly,
uh, and
exactly.
uh, and then we run into these turnos and all that, and now this and this, all this is going on, right? So it's crazy. Well, about your company, so looking ahead, where do you see Nimbus in next 5 years, and also give me a little bit your vision for the long term for the company.
Um, I see Nimbus being the premier go-to destination for personalized medicine. That's the vision I have. It's the ability for the average American to come online get lab results back, and get a treatment plan associated with it. That's our goal. There are a lot of companies out there that do point of care testing, right? Like that send test kits how you get your labs back, but nobody really sends like connects that with the provider and then gets them a personalized treatment plan as a result. And then you monitor them, which is the hardest part. Getting them the prescription the first time's the easy part, to be honest. Like for example, in the women's hormone optimization space, like this is how difficult it is. If you have a menopausal woman and you start 10 people, right, on the same drug, all 10 of them are going to react differently.
Yeah.
That's just
Mhm.
what happens in medicine, right? All 10 of
Yeah.
them are going to react differently. So how do you scale that model? Right? How do you
Yeah.
scale that economically while you're trying to keep the cost down to make it affordable for everybody to get it and make it accessible? How do you scale that model to where you're serving hundreds of millions of patients who want to get this, right? So that is the difficult part, and that's where technology's really helped us get to that point, or we're getting to
Hmm.
that point. So I think that's going to help us become a premier go-to destination for people who want to get that level of care.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Basically, you see tech as the lever here to help you attain that scalability through standardization of some sort.
1000%. That's exactly what it is. Like
Okay.
expecting a physician, like to give good care to what we're doing now, if you got your labs back and if you were a good provider of any caliber, it would take you like a good 30 minutes to an hour just to like figure out what's going on with this patient,
Got
right?
it. Hmm.
What is 30 minutes to an hour of a physician's time worth? Like in your words, what would you think it's worth? Like if you had to pay them? Like you were in the healthcare field, so you kind of know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard these numbers, right? 15 minutes is what you got. You have to do it. Those appointments, right? So I don't know the exact number, but I have some ideas. Like that's how you do it. 400
Yeah, it's
bucks,
it's
and then you
higher,
can
right?
do it.
Like
Yeah,
on average, it's probably anywhere between $75 to $150, like for that
yeah,
consult. So like
yeah,
right off the bat, like that's not affordable for most Americans,
yeah.
right? But
Hmm.
what if the doctor had like a cliff note synopsis of what's going on with this patient, the critical parts, and he sees lab work, and he has a recommendation plan that's very conservative right next to it that he can look at and be like, oh, that makes sense. Let me talk to this patient and make sure that all my questions are answered. And then within 5 minutes, he can give the care that he could have given in an hour and a half, right?
Hmm.
That's where
Hmm.
we're leveraging technology, and it's there. I
Interesting.
mean, everybody's
Yeah,
started using Chat GPT now, and they're seeing it. Like the processing power of these computers is insane.
yeah. And are you also just for? I know that this is more on testing and then building that profile kind of. Is it also inclusive of looking at the um, old medical records for the person, like throughout they can submitting it, and that's how
Yeah,
you're compiling it together with it?
exactly. That's the stuff that takes a long time, right? Like the stuff that
Yeah,
takes a long time is the due diligence on what's this patient's background.
yeah,
What kind of medical history do they have? Do their parents have cancer? Like, what runs in their family? And if I put them on this drug, are they going to have cancer or are they going to have these adverse effects? Right. So a lot of our like even questionnaires are built to where you're excluding patients as you go through the funnel to where we're only treating who we can possibly treat. Like if you're not a candidate for a digital, not everybody's a candidate for digital healthcare, right? There is a need for in-person visits. There's no doubt about it. So
right,
like, but there's 300 something million people in America, right? And if you look at a bell curve, I always tell people like, if you look at a bell curve, we're not for the people on this 20% of the side or this 20% of the side, where you need so much care and you don't need any care, right? We're for the people in the middle,
mm-hmm,
and that's a lot of people who
yeah,
want access to this kind of care. So that's our target market, and that's what we're focusing on.
wow. Any investors listening to this, this is the line. This is the bell curve right in the middle. that's
Yeah.
that's where you want to put your money. Interesting. Okay. And so looking towards the future, so what are the emerging trends, especially in healthcare tech, that excites you the most?
AI, right? Like everybody's talking about AI. We talked about it a little bit. There's so much that's being done in the world of pharmaceuticals and in medicine in general because of AI. It's very exciting to see where it goes. The ability to like get treatment plans more precise and accessible and efficient using technology is a big passion of mine. Obviously, we were doing this before it became a big buzzword. So I don't even use AI anymore. I just use machine learning. It's what we say
Yeah,
because it's just I don't know. There's companies I've seen out there who don't know anything about AI who say they're AI company. Like it really
yeah,
bothers me. But like for example, like on our back end, right? We have data lakes that are built. Like every patient's a part of like a data set. And in 5 years, I'm going to be able to get outcomes data on people who live in certain zip codes, right? It's very granular data. The ability to process that kind of information and actually monitor patients and see what their outcomes were. It's almost like a long term clinical study, right? Like
right.
like you're collecting, but getting that data accessible and to the format you need to use it in from a technical perspective, that's where AI is going to thrive and going to help medicine like significantly. I'm very excited about that, and especially in the area of genomics. Like for the longest time, we all know we need to treat like a patient for who they are using genomics, but it's so cumbersome. Like to look at
Yeah,
genetics and understand alleles and like look at the factors that affect XYZ, right? With AI, you can easily do that, right? Because it's all about data crunching.
yeah,
So those are the two areas I'm most excited about and that I see are emerging trends in healthcare.
yeah. I think like the biggest plus with all this machine learning is the core power is data processing, right? Because human cannot do it, or computers were able to do it, but now you can do it at different X level, right?
And it's huge.
And that's a big plus for everyone, right? Like even uh, it just for even for people who are using chat gpt, like you can literally copy a whole bunch of data sets and put it in and just tell me like what does it even mean. It will give you all the stuff. You can make sense of data, and I
Yeah,
think that's the superpower, and I think that's is super important in where we have technologies and where you have so much data set information just to make sense of that. And this is where it gets really exciting, that there's so much possibilities of many things that's possible. So you're
exactly.
spot on with that. Okay, so I mean, you did mention that you lecture in UT every year or so. So what advice are you giving to young professionals, especially students who are looking to make some impact in healthcare, and particularly in the underserved communities?
Sure. Uh, my advice to young professionals or students is to stay curious and passionate about making a difference, right? Healthcare is a field where you can have like a profound impact on a patient's life, especially in underserved communities. Um, Focus on understanding the unique needs of these communities and how you can bring something extra to the table, whether it's leveraging technology to make their lives easier or it's using XYZ tools to get better patient outcomes. That's what I would advise young people to do. And also, like analyze it with an ethical perspective, right? Like we talked about the Dunn ordeal. Like know what the guardrails are for medicine. Yeah, we all want to disrupt certain industries, and healthcare is right for it. But stay within ethical boundaries and do what's best for the patient. Like it goes back to what I told you earlier. You take care of the patient will take care of you as a business, right? So that's probably my 2 cents for students is to stay curious and be passionate about what you're doing, and good things will happen.
Good things will happen. Nice. And so this has been wonderful. And I have one last question, which is more of a personal take. I take you and ask you is tell us about a personal thing that you have told no one in your professional circles, but this is your chance to share it with the world. So what would be that thing?
Okay. I guess thing about me that most people don't know in my professional circle is probably my love for motorcycles. I'm an avid motorcycle enthusiast. I used to race competitively back in the day. on tracks, and now it's just limited to track days at Coda Circuit of the Americas. If you follow F1, it's in my backyard. It's in Austin.
Yeah.
I'm a big track rider, love motorcycles, love going fast. So not a lot of people know that about me in my professional circles. And then also, I'm also a huge marine enthusiast. Like I love saltwater fish and corals and just marine life in general. So that's probably another tidbit that most people don't know. I love the chemistry behind it. It's really nerdy, but like pretty awesome. Like having a slice of the ocean in your living room, right? So I've got a 200-gallon tank, saltwater mixed reef tank, and then I've got a small 30-gallon nano that's in actually my office. Like you can see it here. It's
Nice.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are all live. Everything in there is alive, right? Like keep sustaining life in a small cube is not easy to do, especially when it's from the ocean. So love doing that.
Great. Thanks for sharing it. And it's one of those things when I ask with people this question, and it's always very interesting to learn because it's like a it's like a free range for people and what they want to share. So I get really excited about this question, and it also gives me a great insights into just for how you are, how you think about certain things outside of the professional world. So that's great. Well, thanks for coming on the show. And where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
I think most people can connect with me on LinkedIn, Jobby John. Instagram also. A lot of people hit me up on Instagram. So those are probably the two most public facing platforms I use.
All right. So you can find Dr. John on LinkedIn. And also, you should check out their website, nimbushealthcare.com. And this is the end of the show. Thank you for your time. Much, much appreciated. And thank you for everyone who will be listening this show. Thank you.